Thank you for tuning in to In the Vine Dating Podcast. Today, we'll be continuing our newest segment called Who's in the Vine, released every Monday, where Melissa will be interviewing different guests to talk about the questions you ask. And remember to follow up every Thursday, where we will further discuss any questions or responses you may have. Please enjoy, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Who's in the Vine Dating Podcast with your host, Melissa Chavez. And we are back, baby. And it's going to be a good one. So we did take a couple weeks off and we recorded some hot fire episodes. We talked a little bit about, heartbreak. And we talked about biblical femininity, which that can be a conversation for days. And so but now we're so excited to have G Mama in the studio with me. And I know her as G Mama. A lot of people know her as G Mama, which is short for grandma. Mm-hmm. But her name is Maria Toribio, and we say that with pride around these parts. Because as you're about to learn, this woman has been through some things, okay? So before we get started, my mission is to make you cry already.
I was just like, I'm not going to cry.
But, and I'm sure the girls are going to have their turn when we all discuss this interview, but G Mama has been a heaven-sent gift to me. Before I even knew what was in front of me, we call her at the church, we call her Ninja Maria as well, because this woman be throwing blessings out without nobody knowing. By the time we figure out who did it, she's already on to the next one. So G Mama has done things, unspeakable things for me, and what's crazy is that I know I'm not the only one that has that testimony. And so if you ever thought that angels existed, G Mama overpasses them. She literally is a daughter of the Most High God.
Just kidding. I'm modest.
She really is, which is crazy to me, because if I were her, I'd be like, yeah, girl.
No.
So G Mama, welcome.
Hi.
How are you feeling? You feeling good? Nervous?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm excited because I know that this is going to help others.
Yes, I agree. Oh, and what you guys... Before I move on to that, she's Mikey's mom. She's Mike's mom, Denize's husband's mom. And so that's how she came into our life.
Right.
But yeah, so when we talked about Mike and his story, definitely go check out that interview on the first season, Who's in the Vine, Mike Verduzco. We talked a little bit about his journey growing up, right? Which obviously you were the main character in that.
Yes.
So we're going to dive into that. But before that, tell us a little bit about yourself that I haven't already shared.
Well, it's my birthday week. I'm going to be 57 years old.
How timely. I hadn't correlated that.
Yeah, it's my birthday week. And I just am always reflecting on my life. It's like, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
And it's been a journey. I'm a mother of two. Mm-hmm. I have Mike and David. They're both in their 30s. I always forget how old they are until I do the math. And I have three beautiful grandchildren, obviously Denize and Mike's baby girls. Yeah. And I'm involved with the church. I'm involved in the children's ministry, Little Lambs, kids below 6 years old. Mm-hmm. And I help with the administration part of that. And I'm a teacher as well. And I have a job where I've been at for going now 27 years.
Crazy
who's
story.
Blessed me so tremendously during this journey. Yeah. And I'm just very blessed and happy to be here.
Good. So are we.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know a lot of your story, right? Mm-hmm. I remember when you would drive me down to visit my mom. One day you opened up about your life, and I was like, what in the world? Like, it honestly feels like you've lived 3 different lives. Mm-hmm. And that to me is quite astounding, because the things that you've been through, I feel like a lot of people would use that as an excuse to be bitter. Ooh. And would use that as an excuse to make themselves victims. Mm-hmm. And which is what you are not. Mm-hmm. You are the complete poster child for victory, mm-hmm. and gratitude and serving, which is the main reason why you're here, your heart of servanthood. And so I'm not going to look at you in the face because we will both cry. So, share. Mike shared with us that you and David and him were homeless at a time. How did you get to that place?
Not by choice.
I would hope not.
So I met the boy's dad in high school, and we were high school sweethearts, and I fell madly in love with him. My mom was very, very strict. Growing up, she would use religion to control us, and so the life at home was pretty challenging.
Yeah.
My parents were also divorced when we were young. My mom would keep us away from my dad, so I just wanted out of
The circumstances.
Right? My mom remarried, and so when I met Mike, which is Mike's dad, he's junior, I fell madly in love with him, and I had a scholarship to go to college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I had told Mike, I said, I'm going to go to college. And he says, don't go to college, marry me. I'm like,
so romantic.
So romantic. So I said yes. And so I ran off with him. And growing up with my mom, she was very, what will people say? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So she would tell people that I left because I got pregnant, not knowing that I had been told that I wouldn't have kids. I wouldn't be able to because of something
That's
that
right.
happened. Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
Yes. So anyway, I moved in with Mike, and at 21, I got pregnant, which was a big surprise. So we lived together. We were happy. And then a year and a half later, I had David. And when the kids were, Mikey was like 6 years old, their dad started drinking a lot.
6 years old, you said?
6 years
Okay.
old. And violent. Like, he would get violent when he was drinking. Had knives in his hand, would threaten me. And I recognized this, like, I don't want this for my kids. Yeah. And he would badmouth me. And when the kids started repeating the words that he was saying to me, I said, I'm done with this. I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And one day he came home drunk. He had a knife in his hand. He said, it's going to be me or you. And I said, well, it ain't going to be me.
ain't going to be me, partner.
So obviously he was drunk. And it was Easter. It's the timing of all of this. It's all God. Because you'll see why. So I lived next door to my mother-in-law. So the kids were next door doing an Easter egg hunt. So I was home alone with Mike. And we were fighting. He had the weapon. And he ended up going into the bathroom, and he locked himself in there. And I had no choice but to call the police because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going to happen. The police show up, and they said, I told them what had happened. And they said, okay, we're going to go take him out of the bathroom. He wouldn't open the door. They broke the door down. And I said, he has a weapon. And they said, we can't find it. I go, he's wearing a boot. And so they found in his boot. Hello. So anyway, the police officer looked at me and said, what did you do to make him mad? I was just like, I did nothing. I did nothing. But that was the mentality back then. It was just you were the problem.
You must have caused it, yeah.
You must have caused it, right? So anyway, the officer said, all we can do is take him into the hospital for 3 hours, hold him for 3 hours for observation, and you have to figure out what to do. And I'm like, well, why do I have to leave?
Yeah.
I really was just like in shock. He goes, because we cannot guarantee your safety. He says, if he comes back and he does something to you, you can call us. So I said, well, I can't call you if I'm dead.
Right.
So that moment I called one of my friends, and she says, you need to get out of the house. And I said, where am I going to go?
Right.
At that point, I already was distant from my family. I had a falling out with my mom, so I was distant from all my family, from my dad. So it's not like I had a family resource.
Right.
Like Mike had said, my friends were gone. My only friends were Mike's family.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had 3 hours to make a decision. So I said, okay. And my friend says, call shelters. So what are we going to do in the shelter? Why do I need to go? I was still so defiant.
Right.
So it was like, it's not my fault. So anyway, she convinced me to call a shelter. They said they didn't have room. But she said, come to my house. But Mike knew where she lived. So one of her friends went to the house and because I couldn't go in the house anymore. I was so upset. And I just told her, pick up the kids' clothes, load up my car with whatever you can find. And she did. She loaded up my little station wagon that Mikey talks about, the little putt-putt. And we ended up going to Barbara's house. I slept in the car because I was kind of keeping watch.
Yeah.
And then the shelter said, oh, there's room for you. So we went to the shelter. The shelter was a program for 3 months. And it was just single moms with abusive situations, right? And so we were there. The first few weeks, I was devastated. I was lost. We were on lockdown because they know that the first few weeks after a domestic violence issue, the perpetrator is hunting you down. So they lock us down, so we couldn't leave the house. Of course, the kids are like, we want dad, and we want dad.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So anyway, in this shelter, there were 7 other women with children who kept coming in, same situation. And so I was so, like, defeated. I was just like, where did this come from? How do I end up here, right? And so I was giving up. I almost went back. You know what stopped me? My mother-in-law called me and left me a message, says, you need to bring the kids back to Mike. And I don't know how the phones worked then because it was a voicemail. We didn't have cell phones, so I don't remember, but I remember hearing this message. How could you do that to my son? And those are his kids and blah, blah, blah. Mind you, I never told anyone of the issues we were having because I was, no one has to know.
Right. That's what you were raised in.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, after 3 weeks, my mother-in-law calls me again and says, I'm so sorry. I apologize for everything that happened. I didn't know my son was this way. He has another woman in the house now. I didn't know. I was clueless that was the issue because we had been fighting and he would leave on the weekend. But I'm so naive. I was so in love. I was just like, he wouldn't do that to me. And that was furthest from my thoughts.
That's the worst.
I just thought he has an alcohol problem. You know, it's familiar to me because my dad had that too, but he wasn't violent. So anyway, so that confirmed, well, I can't go back. I have to figure it out. And so the shelter forced me to go look for a job because I wasn't motivated. They put the kids in a nearby school. And she says, just go to an employment agency. So I go to the employment agency. I said, I'm applying for a job. And they look at me and say, do you speak Spanish? I said, yeah. They said, do you want to work here? And I said, yeah, we need a receptionist. I said, okay. So I got hired on the spot.
People with stories like that? How? How? That's such, oh my gosh.
So I got a job right away.
That's amazing.
And so because I got a job, no one else in the house was getting a job. The women were like just so broken. They were so dependent on these men and they were just eager to leave the house to go back to them. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I said, I can't go back to that, you know? Yeah. So I said, okay, I'm standing in faith that whatever happens, happens, you know? Yeah. And so immediately within a month, I got promoted in that job to payroll manager. I don't know.
That's a big deal.
A huge deal.
Oh my gosh.
And then even a month after that, I was promoted to account executive for a national account. Wow. And I'm always a hard worker. I'm always very dedicated. I always start from the bottom up and learn everything. And it was pretty easy. I mean, it wasn't very challenging. So anyway, I became a success story for this shelter. So I went on talk shows. One talk show, not a famous one, but something where, you know, battered women can see. Yeah. I went to speak at events to give my story, my testimony that there's hope, you know. And in the meantime, my poor kids, you know, Mikey told you about the story about the Big Mac, the finding coins, pennies. Yeah. And when I saw my son David looking for pennies, it's not like the shelter didn't give us food. It's just they only gave us dinner, but they wanted something different, you know. Yeah. And so when he was looking for pennies, I go, Mijo, why are you looking for pennies? Because I want to buy a hamburger from McDonald's. It's 23 cents. So I'm, you know, he's short so many pennies. And in my heart, my heart broke. Yeah, I said,
of course.
How am I putting my kids through this? You know, and it's like, but now I had a job. So now I had to save enough money to buy an apartment, to get an apartment. So I got an apartment. We moved in. The kids were such troopers. And ultimately, their dad came back in their lives. I did have to have a restraining order because he did threaten to take the kids to Mexico. So I was just like, oh, no, you're not. Yeah. So when he came back into their lives, he was Disneyland dad. And I was so mad because here I am suffering and dealing with all of this.
Yeah.
Didn't get child support, just struggling like crazy. And he was just this Disneyland dad.
Right.
And something checked in my heart, and I know it was God.
Yeah.
He said, let him be Disneyland dad. Just don't talk about him with the boys. Like, don't talk bad about him. And so that was something that so instilled in me that, because I was always in the middle when my parents were divorced. And I knew that feeling was terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, life went on, and we survived. We got an apartment. Eventually I got a house. The boys were thriving. They were happy. My goal was to make them happy, and I was always praying over these boys that they wouldn't get into gangs, and they wouldn't get into drugs. I never prayed against the alcohol because I thought they were so traumatized by the alcohol. I shouldn't pray for them because they're not going to be alcoholics.
Because God can only do one or two things.
Yeah. So I was just like, man, I missed that one because they were drinkers.
It's so funny.
So yeah, so that's what happened. I mean, we survived. We got a house. We moved to Palmdale. I worked in Glendale. I got the job in Glendale because at the agency I was on 24-hour call, and I have two boys. So when someone would call, they needed a person at 2 in the morning, I had to wrap up my kids and take them to the office to make the phone calls because I didn't have a computer at home. That wasn't available.
It wasn't a normal thing.
Yeah, so I'm getting $10 an hour to work 24/7. I go, this is not right, And so I said, I'm just going to look for a 9 to 5, $10 an hour. I don't care because I'm going to get the same pay, but I don't have to work 24 hours. So I got this job where I am now. Turned out to be the best blessing ever.
Yeah.
I was also a translator there. I was making appointments for people to sell their cars. And the owner has two girls the same age as my boys with the same month that they were born. So that we had that in common.
That's so cool.
And so he saw the struggles that I was dealing with, and he knew that I had babysitter issues. And he says, just bring the kids here after school. You can bring them here. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, have them just go in the spare room and they can do homework.
That's amazing.
And eventually we grew up there. Mikey ended up working there, being a filing person. And, here we are.
Here we are. That's pretty astounding. And I think a lot of the single moms that I know, that is the struggle that they have, where, letting the Lord vindicate them. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's tough because you're playing the long game.
Oof.
You're playing the very long game. Yeah. And you're also playing a gamble.
Yes.
Because you don't know if your kids are ever going to have that realization, right? You don't know what's going on when they're with the other parent. You don't know who else is going to come into their life. And, you're relinquishing a lot of control in those areas. And there's a lot of vulnerability to be hurt, for your kids to be hurt. And so...
And we were.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I know that right now you're talking with a broad brush, right? You're not even going into the nitty gritty of it. And so that to me is pretty crazy.
But I can.
Yeah. For time's
There's
sake.
a lot. There's a lot. There's just so much. But what I found that speaking to single mamas, this is a common thing, the common emotions, the common feelings, the common circumstances. The thing that's the difference is not being that victim.
Yeah.
So I knew that I had to I had no choice but to go ahead, move ahead.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was going to look like. I was just going. I just kept going. Did I have bad days? Did I have days where I said, I give up, I'm tired? Yes. But I never showed my weakness to my boys. Yeah. Ever. If I did, I'm sorry, but I really tried to be that strong person, just to encourage them and just say it's gonna be fine. They never asked for things. They knew where we were. Yeah. Mac and cheese and cup of noodles were bomb, and so affordable, and they never complained. Yeah. Going out was such a pleasure. It was such a treat. Yeah. Going out to eat, because I didn't have the extra resources, but Dad did. At first, like I said, I was pretty resentful about that. Yeah. But then I thought, let him. Yeah. Let the kids get to know who he really is. And they did. Yeah. They did.
Well, thank the Lord for that vindication, right? Okay, so my next question is, all of that was happening and, the boys grew up, right? And you were still working where you're working now. And next thing you know, as the story goes, Denise met Mike and Mike met Denize. And they got married and they moved to Palmdale and did all the things. And so, or not Palmdale, but the AV. And from there, somehow, some way, you made your way over to Greater Works Christian Church.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that story of you coming. Because, by the way, for our listeners, you weren't serving Jesus the way that you're serving Jesus now.
No, I was not.
And so, you know, you keep talking about God, and but back then you didn't know that it was God, right?
No.
And so that's one thing, you know, that's really astounding to me because, you know, God is not limited to our religion. Right? Because we always think, well, they're not serving God. God can't move in their life. First of all, the word says that God reigns on the just and that the rain falls on the just and the unjust, and that there's wisdom for those that are saved and not saved. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, that's God's kindness, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily mean that God loves that your sin,
right?
But there's a mercy there, right? And so, I can go into a lot in that, but I'm going to bring it back in. So tell me, how did you come to Christ?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say after, well, I think the boys were like 10, I lived with a man for 16 years, another man for 16 years. And he proposed to me because I call him cheating. Mm. And the thing is, he used the children to give me the gift of the ring, and so I couldn't say no to him. And in my mind I thought, I'll just make this a very long engagement. Because he had a little girl, 3-year-old, and I know she wasn't close to her mom, and my heart was to raise her. So I promised myself that I would stick it out for her until she was 18 with this man who was just like, he wasn't abusive, he wasn't an alcoholic, he was just a big kid.
Passive.
Very. He quit his job. He says, you figure it out. You know, you can always figure it out. You've always figured it out.
So he was ahead of his time, because that's the 2023 man right now.
Yes, right now.
2024. What year are we in, Lord Jesus?
Exactly. So, anyway, after I broke up with him, obviously I became single again. And my sister had to go to the hospital, my older sister, because she had some pain.
Wait. It's bothering me that I said that. So, not bagging on men, the boys, okay? Because there are good men out there. So I just want to make sure.
No, there are.
Because the conviction was eating me up a little bit.
No, it's really, there's all kinds.
There's all kinds.
There's all kinds out there. So he had certain characteristics that I enjoyed, and he had certain characteristics that I didn't, you know. But no one's perfect, and I knew I wasn't perfect, and I'm very gracious. Like, I'll give you opportunities, and it was opportunity after opportunity, and I'm like, at what point? With him, I ballooned almost to 300 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
I hated myself. I think I've told you that I used to drive on the 14, and it's like, where can I drive off the cliff where it won't hurt me so much? I was so depressed. But that's back then. I look back and it's like, oh, that was dumb.
But in the moment, you feel like there's no way out.
No, there's no way out. There's no way out. But my way out was when she turned 18 and she left. It was like, so I was counting down, and when she left that week, I ended up with him. And so anyway, the point is I became single again. So my sister got sick. She went to the hospital, and that visit to the emergency room, the doctor was so insensitive, said, you have stage 4 cancer. Wow. You have 3 months to live. Let us know what you want us to do. Just like that, like nonchalant.
Like if you had a bad part on a car.
And she was just like in shock, and I was the only one with her. And she goes, I don't know what to do. I don't know if to cry or to laugh, or is he kidding? And I said, I don't know, honey. So her daughter was going to a Christian church. And so obviously when we told the family, her daughter says, I want my mom to give her life to Christ before anything happens. We didn't want to, because growing up, my mom used religion to control us. We became Catholic when there was a party. We became Christian when boys were around. We became Protestant when she thought we were dressing a little too provocative, and so we had to wear the skirts and no makeup. And so I promised myself that I wouldn't throw religion to my kids. I said, whatever they find, they find. So anyway, because of my sister, we started going to a Christian church in Reseda.
Okay.
And this Christian church was very mellow, not like where we are, whereby you can go there, and they said, if you need prayer, close your eyes and raise your hands. No one else will see that you need prayer.
God.
So it's like, ooh, I like this one.
Okay.
I like this. Because I wasn't getting convicted. I was just like, they're not going to call me on my stuff, you know, and because I knew. I was baptized Christian when I was little, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I know about Christianity to a certain extent. So I liked that church. And then Mikey started coming over here. Says, Mom, why are you driving down the hill when you can come to our church? And I was so like, I shouldn't go there.
So anti.
I shouldn't go there. I shouldn't go there. And it was the enemy holding me back, obviously. Went to the church. Pastor Adriana read my mail.
Always, like she always does.
Yeah, and I was
Pastor
just like,
Adriana and that
how
gift.
does she know all of this? And she was just calling things out and this. And I left like, I don't belong in this church. It's like, I don't want people to know my life. I don't want people to judge me, you know.
Yeah.
So I went back to Reseda, and then I got checked again. It's like, just go back. And so I went back, and immediately the first year I was dealt with the spirit of rejection, like major in within the church, just certain circumstances. But that's what I had been dealing with all my life. Yeah. So I had to deal with it head on, and here comes...
Which is amazing, to be honest, because, you know, one of the things that Pastor Adriana says, and one of the things that we've learned also, is that rejection is literally physical pain. Like, your body has a literal physical reaction to it, and it messes with your brain, it messes with your mind, it messes with your every single part of you. And so to me, it's really astounding that, you know, you in the first year of being legitimately saved, you went for it. And I know that God put you in a boot camp, right? Because it's not like you chose it. No. But he definitely put you in a boot camp. And so to me, the fact that you just went, maybe not by choice, but you went for it, I think that that's amazing, because, you know, as the word says, he makes a table for you in the presence of your enemies. And a lot of us, we want to have the healing without the sickness. But in order for you to find out that you need healing, you need to encounter your sickness. Right. And of course, God is a God of healing. And so he doesn't sweep things under the rug. And so that to me is profound. So
yeah, it was right in my face. Yeah. And I wanted to run many times. And Adriana says, you're not going anywhere. Yeah. There's a lesson for you, and there's a lesson for the people, because it wasn't just one person. Yeah. And I said, I don't want this. This is too hard. And, you know, and within that, I made such beautiful friendships. Yeah. You know, with other people that were praying for me, that were covering me, that I probably wouldn't have seeked. I don't know. I just people were just really drawn to I guess my situation, and not that I broadcasted.
Yeah,
it's just
I didn't
obvious.
even know anything that was happening.
It was just, you know, it's just people's heart. You know, we're very compassionate, and I'm a very compassionate person. And so anyway, I stuck it out, and there's such redemption now over all that situation that I would tell people, don't delay the process. Go through it, or you're gonna just delay going through it. It's like a Band-Aid, but this is a long Band-Aid. But it's just get it done, because I kept being put into situations over and over again. I'm like, what are you teaching me? And it was my identity. Yeah. I needed to find my identity. Yeah. I needed to value myself, and I needed to see myself as God's child. Yeah. And once I did that, I didn't care about what people thought. I didn't care. Yeah. I was just like, oh, this is not as hard anymore. This is not as hard anymore. And I'm just so grateful. Yeah. I'm so grateful I went through that. So when I see women going through that, I'm like, stick it out. Yeah. Stick it out. Don't give up, because you're going to go through it again. Yeah. You might as well get rid of it now. Yeah. And my life has been such a blessing. Yeah. So beautiful.
I agree. It, you know, so with all of that, right? Because during the time that you, and I hate to use this term, right? But for the sake of painting the picture, this is where you really made a name for yourself in the church, right? Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is people really started discovering who G Mama was, right? It was just like, oh, like, you know, it wasn't Mike's mom anymore.
Yeah.
This is like, no, this is G Mama. And I think it's even beautiful, right? Because, you know, this season we're talking about servanthood, and we're talking about other issues when it comes to like premarital sex and stuff. But for the sake of this, we're sticking to servanthood. And so you were still serving in the midst of this chaos, right? And you were still serving in the midst of you going through your own stuff. And I think a lot of us, myself included, like, I'm not gonna lie, we use that as an excuse to pull back. And we use that as an excuse to go back into our little caves. Like, I remember there was this one time where after I finished not high school, I got my degree. And, you know, I had been in hiding for a little bit, but rightfully so, because I was studying and all that. But I remember I came out and I was like, and the Lord's like, okay, like, you need to start building relationships. And not even like 1 or 2 weeks in, like, all hell exploded. All hell exploded. And I was like, this is what you brought me out for? How dare you, you know? And I had some real, you know, accusations to the Lord, right? And thankfully, like you said, I had those people in my life that were willing to stick it out with me through the good, through the bad, and through the anger. And so, you know, to me, your life is so powerful with that, with the servanthood, because you, and sometimes you bring so much conviction all the time, and it's just like, gee, mama, like, do you ever turn off? Like, but this is because it's who you are. Like, you know, the gratitude, the finding the silver lining in everything, the faith, and to me, it's just like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? And what I love the most is that you pour that out to other ladies, right? And so, how, you know, through all of this and through all your struggles and through all the situations that life threw at you, how did you keep yourself from getting bitter or resentful?
Yeah, I'm not saying that I didn't initially.
Yeah.
But I knew it was getting me nowhere. It was just getting me nowhere. I was just angry for things that other people were doing, and I needed to control how other people were treating me.
Yeah.
So, and then I also have a lot of mercy. I know no one's perfect.
Yeah.
I know everyone is a child of God. Everyone was chosen to be on this earth. And if someone is projecting something to me, it just shows me that they're broken, and it breaks my heart for them.
Yeah.
So that shifted in my mind. I've always had a lot of compassion for people. One thing that Pastor Adriana really kind of had to reel me back was to not enable, because as soon as I saw a problem, it's like, I can help, and I can help. And I was doing that initially a lot, and I won't lie, it made me feel good, because it's like, if I have a way to help, I'm going to help.
Yeah.
Because when I was homeless, there were several people who helped me, and I was so grateful. It wasn't to help me to help them. They were really genuinely, here, I want to help you, you know? But what stopped me from doing that, obviously Pastor Adriana says, I don't want you to enable. I want you to hear the voice of God to say, I want you to do this. So I want you to pray about things. And I had to say no to certain situations, and that just broke my heart. But that's my flesh. Yeah. When I did it God's way, and this is why I became ninja, because I didn't want the credit. Yeah. I wanted to hear that that was an answered prayer for that person. When I heard it, and I said, God, thank you. Thank you for doing that. And that's why they call me ninja, because I don't want the accolades. Yeah. I want him to get the accolades. Yeah. And in that, he just keeps using me and using me and using me. And again, it's to glorify him. Yeah. He provides for me to be able to provide to someone, because he uses us. Right. He can't just come here, you know. Right. He uses people, and I'm just honored when he does. And when it works out, where someone was literally praying something, I got it in my spirit. I text that person. I said, God put in my heart. I did tell that person, because this was a big thing. I said, God put in my heart to do this. Yeah. And this person was crying. He says, we literally just prayed about that. Yeah. So I was just like, no way. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I just have a heart for people, because I know no one's perfect. Yeah. And I want salvation for people. I don't want to know that I didn't do something to help them be closer to God. Yeah. That's my goal.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are really unsuspecting with you. And I think those are people that are really dull in the spirit. Because I know with you, the clarity that you hear God's voice, that even me sometimes I'm like, wow, like that's so cool that you hear God's voice like that, you know? Because you've really gotten to know him as a friend and as a father and as a partner, you know, as a co-laborer. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to do that, because a lot of people want to hear God's voice for themselves. But I think the reason why you're such a darling to the Lord is because you always want to hear God's voice for others, you know? And so I think to me that's so profound. And a lot of us, honestly, can take so many lessons from that. Because even though I know that you have limits, you live like if you don't, you know? And that's crazy to me.
Because he's a limitless God.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is because I've been in a really bad situation, and I got out of it. So it's like everything else is cake.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
You know,
it
it's
does.
like he got me out of all of that. It's like piece of cake.
Yeah.
I just can't wait to just show him off.
Yeah.
That's all.
It reminds me of like that scripture with Paul where he's like, I've had little, I've had a lot. And so he's like, at the end of the day, like what matters is Christ, you know? Okay. So as a single woman, hello.
Hi.
I know that you've poured into me when it comes to this a lot, but what advice do you have for people who see being single as a negative thing?
I am just like, don't think that. Use it as a time to get close to God, to find out who you are, who you genuinely are. He will reveal the things that you need to work on. I've learned that if you obviously go into a relationship broken, and that person's broken, it's going to stay broken.
Yeah.
It doesn't get fixed. And I gave people the benefit of the doubt. I needed a lot of safety, because my dad was very macho man, and I love that protection feeling, like nothing's going to happen to me if my dad's around, you know. And I tried to look for a man that would be that person. Yeah. So the guy that I was with for 16 years, he was this big guy, goatee, glasses, drove a motorcycle. Okay. I was like, woo-hoo! And he danced. Yeah. Mike's dad didn't dance. We didn't even dance at our wedding. Yikes. Because he didn't want to dance. And this guy danced. So that was a big thing for me. I was like, oh, you can dance. Check.
las cosas that we find. Oh my gosh.
So when I hear women saying, you know, I just want to get married, it's like, are you really ready? You know, are you really ready to because it is sacrificial. I mean, you're going to have to deal with a person's personality, a person's issues. You're going to have to work together, and you have to be compatible. And the first guy who comes and sweeps you off your feet, it's like, yeah, that's really pretty and nice, but then that dies away, and then what?
Can you build a life?
Yeah. So I always tell the ladies, don't rush.
Yeah.
If God has someone for you, God has someone for you. So one of the things I've done, because it's just a running joke at the church, these single ladies says, I don't even know how to cook. So I started a cooking class. Yes. I said, okay, that's not going to be an excuse anymore.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to teach you how to cook. So you prepare yourself for your husband.
Hey, I'm like my mentor, okay? I am her job. Just kidding.
So I would say just you know, work on yourself, and don't rush the process.
Yeah.
And you have to truly know who you are before you can share it with someone else.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
That's absolutely true. Denize said something profound in one of our podcasts where she was talking about how, you know, at first I asked her, I think I posed the question, it's like, well, what if it starts as though it could be a love thing? And then once it's over, it ends up turning into like this obsessive weird thing. She's like, then it was never love to begin with. And I think that not just for me, but for people, I think that really pulled the rug out of a lot of us, right? Because what happens is we tend to romanticize things, and we start looking at the good, right? And I'm sure that for you, it reminds, God, I just love the word of God so much. So it's hard to like not dive deep into it, right? But It reminds me of the Israelites when they left Egypt and they were encountering hardships, and then they're like, oh, it would have been better for us to just stay there in the captivity. And it would have been that for you. You know, it could have been that for you, where you're just like, the devil that I know is better than the devil I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know what's going to happen, and this and that. But you trusted without knowing what you were trusting
for.
And I'm just like, that's so crazy to me. That's because I mean, I have trouble. I'm not saying that I have trouble doing that with God. I can't even imagine if I didn't have him. Like, it's so crazy and it's so astounding. And I pray, you know, that people are able to see the glory of that, you know, and that there is redemption and that there is freedom in that. So,
Yeah.
Anything else you would like to add to that little piece?
About
Advice to single, those that see being single as a negative thing.
Just have hope. Just have hope. Okay, so people are always teasing me about, Mama Maria, you need to find yourself a man. And I need a tax deduction, you know, somehow. But I have such a profound, beautiful relationship with Jesus right now that nothing will meet that. That I know of right now, because obviously I'm going based upon my history and so forth. But I know there are good men out there. I see my son Mike. Did I ever think he was going to be the husband that he is, the father that he is? Ever. He did not have the example of that. He had me to show, okay, you got to figure it out. You got to do life, blah, blah, blah. I prayed, make them great people, compassionate, kind, loving, you know, have people love them, you know, love me. And I look at him and it's like, God, thank you. Thank you for taking care of them. Because both of them are very successful. I'm still working on my younger one to come to the Lord, but the Lord told me he will. He will come. So I'm not concerned about that. Obviously, I'm praying him in. But I look at Mike and his relationship, and it's like, I would have never thought. Never in a million years thought that. Because prior to Denize, he would bring a girl. He would bring a girl. Oh, Mom, this is my girlfriend. I'm like, oh, that's not the same one. Oh my God, that's not the same one. But with Denize, it was so interesting. He goes, Mom, I met the one. I'm like, oh, never heard that one before. And he goes, I want you to meet her. I met all his other ones. But this one was more serious. And it just made me so proud. I was like, okay, he's finally going to settle down. He's going to get rid of his motorcycle. He's going to get rid of drinking and all that. And he came to Christ. I was like, Lord, thank you. I couldn't have asked for more. So anyway, wait. There's good guys out there for sure. And again, if you don't know who you are, you're not ready. You're not ready.
That's true. And I think God loves us enough to protect us from that, right?
Yes.
Because you are who you attract. And so if you attract somebody that also doesn't know who they are, then you're both going to be trying to figure that out together, putting on these different facades and faces. And, you know, it's not healthy. Okay, so let's see. You are such an inspiration to many of us and have filled so many empty voids in our lives. What is your secret?
I think I said it. Just have a heart for people and know that they are also chosen by God. So I don't want to meet God in heaven and say you should have, could have done this for this person.
That's a holy fear to have right there.
Yes, huge. And I want to be able to do everything I could to glorify him. And he brings people to your life for a reason. So I have, you know, my commute is almost 4 hours every day. 2 there, 2 back. That's my time with God. We talk a lot, a lot. I pray and worship, but that's where I connect. And when someone drops in my spirit, I pray about that person. That's why even when people say, "Oh, pray for me," you don't have to tell me what to pray for. He tells me what to pray for. I don't have to be intrusive or need to know anything. He knows everything. I just need to come into agreement with the issue being settled, you know? And so because I have that bond with him, I was going somewhere with this. I know that the people he brings into my life is meant for me to represent him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how am I representing him when I'm not being compassionate to people or speaking to people? Or, I mean, obviously there's bad
Balance,
people.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be like Adriana, don't be a doormat.
Yeah.
It's like, how many times she told me, don't be a doormat.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I won't be a doormat, you know. But I just see people with love.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
You know, I feel like a lot of us say that and we want to believe it. But with you, I know that is the very makeup of who you are. Mm-hmm. And you're one of the few people that if you tell me that you're praying for me, I know that you're praying for me. Mm-hmm. And you've been praying for me before I even asked. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's such a treasure. You mm-hmm. know, that to me, that is the pearl of great price. Mm-hmm. Okay, so last but not least, do you see God as your husband? And obviously, I know the answer is going to be yes. So tell me what that looks like.
It looks amazing because what is a husband, right? A husband is a protector. Mm-hmm. A husband is a teacher. Mm-hmm. A husband is a guide. A husband is an encourager. A husband is someone who prays for you.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So that's the kind of husband I would want.
Yeah.
So I see him as my husband. That's why I know I have to work on this, because if he has someone for me, I have to be open to that, right?
Yeah.
But again, my expectations are up here because he's up here. And it's like, you have to meet those criteria, at least,
you
know, the major ones, which is prayer, obviously faith, major. I never had a faith relationship, so I don't know what that looks like at all. But I know that if God is the center of anybody's life, there's hope in anything. Yeah. You can work through anything. And I love our church because when we don't see things, and I've seen this, when we don't see things happening, like if girls are dating, someone will call you out and say, hey, I noticed this. You know, people are not ashamed to, not in a bad way. Yeah. It's just like, hey, consider this. Because when women fall in love, it's like all they see is butterflies and flowers.
I remember somebody saying that it's a known fact that your brain turns off when you're falling in love.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I guess I've been falling in love for a long time because...
you don't see anything else but this, like...
Rainbows and butterflies.
Rainbows and butterflies. And it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful, but that's not the reality of life, because life is challenges. So I always say, test them early. Yeah. How do they get angry at certain situations? How do they handle problem solving? I would suggest that, because have a situation, like have a fight. Yeah. How are you going to handle it?
Sure. I know it's I can pick a fight.
I can pick a fight.
That's my roommate.
So, I see him as my husband, and I have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Nothing to worry about.
And I think if it's anything that I'm learning in this season is that in good, bad, ugly, if you're not 100% rooted in Christ, mm-hmm. and it's contingent on the circumstances. So let's say, right, somebody's waiting for their husband and or wife, and it's been forever, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes. And it's a great relationship, mm-hmm. and you guys are amazing doing things for the kingdom. But then something's bound to happen. There's something that's gonna come and rattle the cage, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And if the way that you approach Jesus was based on the way that your relationship is going, you're not gonna know where to run to. Right. The wise person will learn. Mm-hmm. The person that had illusions in their mind will run away. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely a tough lesson to learn, right? Mm-hmm. And but you have to learn the lesson. Yeah, but and that's one of the things that I think, one, you demonstrate so well, and I think that it's so the mercy of God to allow us to learn it before, right? Yes. Because it's not just in a relationship. Mm-mm. It's at work, let's say you got laid off and all of a sudden you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, or an unexpected death. Like, there's so many things that can go wrong in this world, and they do, right? Because we have a very real enemy who desires to kill us.
Absolutely.
And but the moment that we learn that, as the word says, that to build our house on the firm foundation of Christ, and then it's the moment that we learn that whether we get a promise or we don't, at the end of the day, Christ is the reward, you know? And so, Mama, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I know that you have so much to give, and you have so much more to pour out. And I'm just so grateful that I get to do it first with you.
Thank you.
I think it's such a high honor.
Appreciate it.
That you said yes. So is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Just keep moving forward. Keep improving yourself. Like Pilan says, but did you die?
Yeah.
And until you die, you still have an opportunity to do. And do everything to be truly, truly filled with joy.
Yeah.
And that's only through Jesus. No one else can give you the joy that he does.
Right.
And in that, when things come to a head anywhere, you can always go back to him. And he's saying, it's okay.
Yeah. I agree. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm so sorry that we left you hanging, but not really. I think this is really good. So as always, thank you for, I know I already said it, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you for tuning in. We understand that time is currency, and we understand that you could have been listening to your bops, listening to, somebody else, but you're here with us right now and you decided to tune in. So we pray that this was a huge blessing. Mama, I love you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Don't forget, pray for your single friends, because
it's hard out here.
Yes. Love it.